Hey, fourth grade. So here we are, day 4 of of our civil rights leaders project, and you have questions to answer. So I just did number 1 without, and I forgot about making a video while I was doing that. So anyway, it says, why did they choose to get involved? Well, John Lewis, who's my person that I'm researching, he was one of the Freedom Riders, and he got involved because he and other African Americans, let me show you where I'm at with my pointer. He and other African Americans could ride desegregated buses, but the problem was that when those buses went to states where they did not support segregation, people were against that and they were trying to attack them. They did get attacked on more than one occasion. All right, and now here I'm looking at what was their goal. And I just found that, and now I lost it. So let me find it again. So, what was the goal of the Freedom Riders? Okay, what was John Lewis's goal? And let's see. Here we are right here, 1960. Okay. So it says SNCC conducted lunch counter sit ins, contributed participants to the 1961 Freedom Rides, co sponsored 1963 March on Washington. That's not the one I just had. And so I'm glad that it's taken me a minute because I want you to see that you're not going to do a search and it pop up right away. You're going to have to read. So I'm reading right here. Ella Baker, Southern Christian, it's named White, directs Nonviolent Civil Rights, SNCC, contributed participants to the 1961 Freedom Rides, co-sponsored by the 1963 March on Washington, contributed to voter education, broader civil rights movement. Here we go. The first two Freedom Ride buses, and here's where I am. The first two Freedom Ride buses were terminated after 10 days, but during the summer of 61, the Freedom Rides were carried by more than 1,000 Americans. John Lewis, who would soon become a celebrated civil rights leader, wrote at the time that he would give up all if necessary for the Freedom Ride, that justice and freedom might come to the Deep South. The Freedom Rides were widely covered in the press and remain one of the most memorable events in civil rights history. Let's see. Here it is, what I'm looking for at the top. So the goal, looking for the goal or the actions that they take. The Corps National Director James Farmer organized an effort to integrate interstate bus stations and buses in the Deep South with a series of Freedom Rides. Freedom Riders were groups of white and black civil rights activists who rode buses to challenge segregation and eastern transportation in southern states. What actions did they take? Let's see. They organized traveled in the southern states. Freedom Riders beaten by a white mob. The first two Freedom Rides were terminated. The first two Freedom Ride buses were terminated after 10 days, but during the summer, the Freedom Rides were carried on by more than 1,000 Americans. John Lewis would soon become a celebrated civil rights leader. Wrote at the time that he would give, okay, but what steps? First Freedom Rides left Washington, D.C. on 2 buses. Okay, so they organized 2 buses to travel to southern states. And I'm going to bring this down here. They were met with brutal violence. Identified what somebody threw a bomb on the bus. Freedom Riders were beaten because of it. Permanent brain damage from a beating. Beat with a metal pipe. So what actions did they take? They organized 2 buses to travel to the States. What barriers or resistance did they face? Well, I just read about that. They were beaten. Buses were bombed. Let me go through one more time. They were terminated after 10 days, but during the summer, the Freedom Rides carried on. More by 1,000 Americans. John Lewis would soon be... That's not it. Freedom Rides left Washington, D.C. 2 buses. Brutal violence by whites opposed to racial segregation. An unidentified person threw a bomb through an open bus window. They were beaten by a mob after exiting the bus. 1 rider suffered brain damage. So they were beaten and buses were bombed. What were the results of their actions? All right, so here we read, all right, so the first 2 Freedom Ride buses were terminated after 10 days, but during the summer of 61, their Freedom Rides carried on. All right, so John Lewis would, soon after the Freedom Ride, John Lewis became a celebrated civil rights leader. All right, I'm just going to read this paragraph right here and see if there's anything else I needed. Core activists also contributed to the voter registration drives in the Deep South that became the focus of civil rights movement in 61 and contributed to the voter education. So core activists, let me see. Core activists, founded by a group of white and black students on the campus of the University of Chicago. Core spent... Okay, that's it. All right, so I've got all my questions answered, and then I'm done for the day. And also, I've got to write down Khan Academy because that's my source. .org, because I got to give them credit since this is their work.